Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back. So, I got my eye surgery done. Can't see great at all, but better than usual. Gonna try to power through things and see if I can create a video here that doesn't look like complete crap. So, I finished my college football draft class pages for the Power 5 conference teams. There's going to be some changes when College Football 27 drops and I'm able to see player ratings, but I feel pretty confident in who the top guys right now for my 2027 draft class are. So I figured now is a good time to get a mock draft going. I usually don't post them on YouTube that often, but hey, we're all excited to see a new crop of players. So this will get my player ranking started and keep the content train going. I went to NFLPlayoffPredictors.com and quickly predicted the season to get the draft order, but that's not very important. Don't worry about that too much. All right, let's get started. Projecting quarterbacks and where they will be taken a year out is very difficult to do. Every once in a while you get a Caleb Williams or Trevor Lawrence that's pretty much a wire-to-wire first overall pick. But the last 2 years we got two guys, Cam Ward, Fernando Mendoza, were mid-round guys going into their last year, transferred to new teams and really elevated their games. Arch Manning struggled a lot early on last year, but really found his footing as the season went on. 6'4", 219 pounds, has ideal NFL measurements and arm, finished with 26 touchdowns against 7 interceptions. Texas is absolutely loaded, especially at the skill positions. I expect him to have a Heisman Trophy caliber season. The Dolphins, if they weren't picking first overall, I think would go Jeremiah Smith. He's my top rated prospect right now. But if you're drafting first overall and you don't have a franchise quarterback, which if you're drafting first overall, you're not going to, you almost have to select the quarterback. So Malik Willis, he's pretty much a stopgap solution. Right now, Arch Manning is my number one prospect and my number one pick, but things can definitely change. The Cardinals have a decent offensive line, Marvin Harrison Jr., and a couple other receivers. Maybe the best tight end in football. Drafted Jeremiah Love in the top 5. But without a quarterback to bring things all together, they're going to struggle. Jacoby Brissett is purely a stopgap solution. Pretty much goes from team to team and starts for a franchise that needs to draft a quarterback. Dante Moore could have been a top 10 pick last year, but he chose to return to Oregon for his redshirt junior season. Probably a good move. Needs to gain a little bit more strength, needs to cut down on his turnovers. But playing for Oregon, they're going to be another loaded team that's going to contend for a national championship. Moore's been in that system for 3 years. Definitely has the looks of a future top 10 pick as soon as this year. So not only is Jeremiah Smith my top prospect for the 2027 draft, he is my top prospect in all of college football. Just an unfair combination of size, strength, and production. 6'3", 223 pounds, has over 160 receptions during his 2 years in college, 27 touchdowns, 2,500 yards. I mean, just unfair production. Carnell Tate, the 4th overall draft pick in 2025, was relegated to a distant second option opposite Smith. He's just a stud in every sense of the word. And the only reason he's not a number 1 overall pick is because receivers usually are not taken that high. Cleveland drafted KC Concepcion and Denzel Boston early. They still have Jerry Jeudy, but make no mistake, you have Smith sitting there for the taking. You draft him. It's okay to have a lot of good receivers. Smith is just an unfair athlete who has produced monstrous numbers. Colin Simmons is probably the top ranked player on my board, but the Falcons have 2 recent first round picks at edge rushers, so they go a different direction. Cornerback is one of the most volatile positions during the draft. We see a lot of guys really fall after mediocre junior or senior seasons, but Leonard Moore looks like the cream of the crop right now. 6'2", 195 pounds, big, strong, fast, had 5 interceptions, a former top recruit. He looks like the real deal. Atlanta has the Terrell brothers, but Avion can play nickel, so you have AJ and you have Leonard Moore, and secondary will definitely be a strength for this team. As usual, the Raiders need pretty much everything, which makes predicting the mock draft for them pretty easy. I just go with best player available pretty much every year. Been doing that the past 20 years and nothing's changed. That would be Colin Simmons right now. Even though the Raiders still have Max Crosby on the roster because of a Knicks trade to the Ravens, they still need additional pass rushing help. Simmons a bit undersized, listed at 6'3", 240, so he may need to bulk up a little bit, but a good run defender. But you're drafting him this high because he can get after the quarterback. 21 sacks during his first 2 years at Texas. A better prospect than David Bailey, who was second overall this year. Simmons, an elite pass rusher with the ability to be a very good overall defensive player. The Jets have seemingly been looking for a long-term option at quarterback since Joe Namath like 50 years ago. They brought back Geno Smith, who was a draft pick of theirs over a decade ago. He's obviously not a long-term option. They need to keep trying until they can find that quarterback of the future and present. Julian Sayin is the latest in a long line of very talented Ohio State quarterbacks. They've been a mixed bag in the NFL, but I try not to judge players by what school they go to. Sayin probably is, of the three underclassmen, the one who could fall off a bit if he doesn't continue to produce as a junior. But with Jeremiah Smith and Bo Jackson on your team, you're probably going to put up big-time numbers. He's a bit small, doesn't have the strongest arm, but I think he is a definite first-round prospect. Going to keep having to produce at a very high level so these other guys don't lap him, but the Jets need to find an option at quarterback long-term. Carolina won one of the worst divisions in football last year and made the playoffs, but I guess according to my predictions, they're not going to do very good this year. They definitely have a better roster than years past thanks to some free agent signings. They have more depth, but could use impact players at premium positions. Ellis Robinson IV was a very high recruit for Georgia, who barely saw the field in 2024 as a freshman. Last year he had 20 tackles, 4 interceptions, still just scratching the surface of how good he can be. I don't usually include redshirt sophomores in my draft classes, maybe 1 or 2 a year, but like Arvell Reese this year, Robinson could be a very high pick even though he doesn't have very much experience. Elite size, elite traits, just scratching the surface of how good he can really be. Jacksonville is returning all 22 starters from a team that went to the playoffs last year, but I guess my predictions that I put no thought into and don't even worry about it. I just did them to do a draft order. Anyway, my predictions have them picking in the top 10, whatever, it doesn't matter. Offensive line is probably a need, especially left tackle. Walker Little hasn't really worked out for them. Trevor Gooseby, one of many first-round prospects on this loaded Texas roster. They just have elite talent all over the place. There's no excuses for them this year. Has great size, a fourth-year junior, going to be blocking for a Heisman contender in Arch Manning. Everything you look for in a franchise left tackle, and he could be a very high draft pick. I know it's early and things will definitely change, but this looks like a draft class that is very high on impact talent, unlike the 2025 class, which was deep but didn't really have a lot of true difference makers. Dylan Stewart available at number 9 is pretty crazy to me. The Vikings have Dallas Turner coming off an 8-sack season and should be a no doubt double-digit guy going forward. Andrew Van Ginkel, also good, but he will be a free agent after this next season. Stewart has top 5
The
talent,
Patriots made the Super Bowl.
Took a small step
probably got
back
better
as a
roster-wise
sophomore,
and
but
finished 8
most
and
of
9
the
in
Carolina
my
Gamecocks
predictions.
had
Whatever, it doesn't
a
matter.
down
There's always
season. It was
surprises.
just kind of a
The
mess
Chiefs
for that
finished in the
program.
top 10
I
of the
fully
NFL
expect
draft
Stewart
last
to
year,
step
so
up
crazy
and
things
become
happen. Whatever,
an elite
doesn't matter.
prospect
Like I said.
that he
Anyway,
was when
moving
he was
on.
recruited.
New England has
Top 10
always operated
recruit,
with
had a
an
very
elite
good
tight
freshman
end.
season.
Hunter has
Henry has done a
ideal
good job,
size,
but
but
if
if
they
they
have
have
a
a
chance
chance
to
to upgrade, I think
a
they'll
true
take it,
edge
especially
rusher
after
at the
adding
NFL
A.J.
level.
Brown.
Continue to give Drake May more weapons. Kenyon Sadiq was a first-round pick
I
as
am
a tight end
Colorado
last year,
college
but
football
may
fan,
not
and
have
the way
even
Jordan
been the best
Seaton
tight end
entered
on
the
his own
transfer
team.
portal kinda
Oregon
left a
also
sour
has
taste in all
Jamari
of our
Johnson,
mouths.
who in
It
a
was late in the
part-time role
process,
caught
but
32
when you're a bad
passes
team,
for
you have a
510
great
yards.
player,
He should explode
and the
now that he's
rules
got
allow
that position
grown
all
men
to
to
himself.
tamper
Has
and
great
poach
size, a
and
good
poke and
blocker,
prod with
definitely
really
an
no
elite
restrictions
tight end
whatsoever.
prospect.
Things like this are
Oregon
gonna happen.
is,
Seaton
as
is
always,
probably the best
loaded
player
everywhere.
that Colorado has ever recruited,
At least greatest this century. He's big, strong, a fantastic all-around tackle, be a huge upgrade on the left side for Tennessee. He decided to move on to LSU, which, let's be honest, that's a good decision. We'll have a lot more scouts looking at him, probably making a lot more money. So yet another fantastic elite talent in this class that's just full of them right now. The Jets are actually sitting in a pretty good position. They added a bunch of players as free agents and have 3 first-round picks in the upcoming draft. So to go with Julian Sayin, I give them yet another offensive weapon. They drafted Omar Cooper and Kenyon Sadiq in the first round last year. Already have Garrett Wilson, but Cam Coleman may be too good to pass up. With 3 first-round picks, they can afford to splurge a little bit here. Coleman, yet another Texas Longhorn, the 4th one in the top 11 of my mock draft. There's no reason that team should not win the championship, by the way. He transferred from Auburn, put up good numbers. They were a bit of a mess last year. Comparable to Carnell Tate production-wise, maybe. He's going to play next to Ryan Wingo, yet another first-round caliber prospect. Coleman has very good size, good speed, can definitely be a wide receiver 1 at the next level. The Jets, if they hit on all these picks and it plays out like this, could be a lot of fun to watch. The Patriots made the Super Bowl, probably got better roster-wise, and finished 8-9 in my predictions. Whatever, it doesn't matter. There's always surprises. The Chiefs finished in the top 10 of the NFL draft last year, so crazy things happen. Whatever, doesn't matter, like I said. Anyway, moving on. New England has always operated with an elite tight end. Hunter Henry has done a good job, but if they have a chance to upgrade, I think they'll take it, especially after adding A.J. Brown. Continue to give Drake May more weapons. Kenyon Sadiq was a first-round pick as a tight end last year, but may not have even been the best tight end on his own team. Oregon also has Jamari Johnson, who in a part-time role caught 32 passes for 510 yards. He should explode now that he's got that position all to himself. Has great size, a good blocker, definitely an elite tight end prospect. Oregon is, as always, loaded everywhere. Lenoris Sellers had a bad redshirt sophomore season for South Carolina. He wasn't very efficient, took a lot of sacks, didn't play great. But he still has the size, the arm strength, the speed that made him so enticing to scouts before the season. So I'm willing to give him a bit of a mulligan. South Carolina as a whole was a mess, but if he has another year like he did in 2025, he's probably out as a first-round prospect. As far as the Steelers, eventually they're going to need to try to find a young option at quarterback. Signing these veterans on their last legs only works out so often. Unfortunately, they're probably never going to be bad enough to truly land an elite prospect without trading a bunch of draft capital. So they're going to have to take a gamble like this, even though it didn't quite work out with Kenny Pickett. Try again. Caden Green has been my favorite interior lineman prospect for years. I've had him in my mocks, and I'm actually surprised that he never declared early. He plays tackle now for Missouri, but I think he fits best inside. 6'5", 324 pounds. Helped Ahmad Hardy have a tremendous season in 2025 rushing the ball. Definite day one starter. I rank him probably a little higher than Vega Ione, who was drafted around this spot in 2025. As far as Tampa Bay, they have definite needs, offensive and defensive line, interior of their line especially, definite work in progress. So I think Green will be drafted in the middle of the first round and be an immediate starter, either guard or maybe even tackle if that's where a team wants to put him. I seem to be higher on Sammy Brown than the draft consensus right now. I don't see him in the first round in any other mocks other than my own. Yeah, it's true that off-the-ball linebackers often fall during the draft, but that's not always the case. If you're as productive as Brown, you often find yourself in the first round. Unlike Peter Woods and T.J. Parker, who failed to live up to the hype in 2025 for Clemson, Brown had a very good season. 100 tackles, 5 sacks for the second straight year. Sacked more than Parker and Woods. So I really like Brown. Very good athlete, 6'2", 235, big enough, quick. A top recruit who has almost 200 tackles and 10 sacks during his first 2 years at Clemson. As far as the Cowboys, they're still searching for their Leighton Vander Esch replacement at linebacker. Remember that guy? So, yeah, they definitely have a spot for somebody like Brown. The Wolf position on Alabama's defense has always produced first-round talent. You had Will Anderson and Dallas Turner in previous years, and now you have Yohanze Pierre. I hope I said that right. I'm terrible at pronouncing names. As a somewhat raw sophomore, 52 tackles, 8 sacks. He should reach double digits this year. May be more of a pass rusher at this point, but if he's developed kind of like Turner was developed for the Vikings, he could be a very good all-around rush linebacker, outside linebacker in a 3-4 defense. The Commanders are transitioning to a 3-4. They signed Owe and K'Lavon Chaisson as free agents to be their starters, but neither one of those guys are probably a super long-term option. Pierre could be that. So I'm at pick 17, and this is my first senior to come off the board. Now, a senior would probably go higher than this, but it's kind of hard to project those guys, especially when you have a new crop of underclassmen that weren't previously eligible. Most of these guys end up declaring, but Amari Washington chose to forego the draft in 2026 and return to Oregon for his senior year. Now, his stats don't jump off the page, 1.5 career sacks, but 6'3", 330 pounds, a true run-stuffing tackle who is more athletic than given credit for. The Giants traded Dexter Lawrence instead of signing him to a big extension. Definite need for a replacement along the defensive line. Washington is not the athlete that Lawrence is, but as far as stopping the run and providing a little bit of pass rushing help, he should be a very good addition. Seattle has Jackson Smith-Njigba, one of the best young receivers in the NFL, and they go with the all-hyphenated wide receiver duo by drafting Ryan Coleman-Williams here, formerly Ryan Williams. They have Cooper Kupp and Rashid Shaheed on the roster still, but Kupp probably doesn't have much time left in the NFL. Very good career. Ryan Coleman-Williams, I'm going to refer to him as Ryan Williams from now on, had a very, very fantastic freshman season. He's got that 99 overall speed. As a sophomore, he really struggled with drops, had one of the worst catch rates in college football. But fortunately, that's something that can be cleaned up. You can't teach his speed and his agility and route running. If he can clean up those issues with drops, gain more focus, he could shoot right back up into the top 10 because he's as talented as any player in the country at any position. My predictions have the Saints winning the NFC South with an 8-9 record, I do believe. So, yeah, someone has to win that division the way Carolina won it last year. The roster is still a major work in progress, so I went with best player available here. That's Zabian Brown, who's still raw for Alabama but has definite first-round potential. He had 2 pick sixes for the Crimson Tide last year, 6 foot, 192 pounds. Adequate size, a former top recruit. Alabama's pretty good at developing defensive backs, and the Saints are still looking for their Marshawn Lattimore replacement a few years later. There is not a Jeremiah Love in this draft class, but I think it's definitely deeper as far as running backs go overall. You got Kewan Lacey and Ahmad Hardy, 2 first-round prospects. Lacey only ran for 104 yards as a freshman, but really exploded as a sophomore. 1,567 yards, 24 touchdowns, was also an asset in the passing game with 29 receptions. So another year of that type of production, 5'11", 200 pounds, definite first-round prospect. Cincinnati has Chase Brown, who came off a good year, but he's going to be an upcoming free agent. They have so much money tied up in their passing game that they may not be able to re-sign him. So Lacey would make a great replacement, and they can kind of reset the clock on another running back on a rookie contract. The Chargers have dedicated a lot of recent draft capital to improving the offensive line, but the defensive line needs help as well. Even though they run a 3-4 defense, they have a bunch of no-names playing along the line and could definitely use an upgrade. David Stone would be able to play pretty much any position along the defensive line. He was a former top 10 recruit, I believe, a 5-star for sure, who didn't really play much as a freshman but had a very good season last year, along with Jaden Jackson, another first rounder I have coming up a little bit later. 6'3", 310 pounds, 43 tackles, 1.5 sacks. Not really a pass rusher, but you don't need a guy that can get after the quarterback 10 times a year along your defensive line if you're playing a 3-4 defense. You need someone who can gobble up some blockers and make the occasional play, and Stone definitely should be able to do that at the least. Apparently, the Lions are the Los Angeles Chargers of the NFC. They also need offensive and defensive line help. Went with Blake Miller in the first round of the 2026 draft. This time they draft another Oklahoma defensive lineman like the Chargers did. Jaden Jackson, another former top recruit who didn't really play a whole lot as a freshman but had a much better sophomore season with an expanded role. 28 tackles, 3 sacks, which puts him at 5 sacks for his career. Could double that as a junior. Not quite the run stopper that Stone is, but maybe a better pass rusher. That's definitely the best defensive tackle duo in college football. Not a lot of publications have Jackson as a first-round pick, but I think he could work his way there if he continues to improve the way he has his first 2 years at Oklahoma. The Eagles have a pretty deep defensive rotation. Jalix Hunt, they really like him. They traded for and then extended Jonathan Greenard from Minnesota. Nolan Smith still on the roster. A couple of big defensive linemen. But like I said, they like to rotate plenty of players. They keep bringing back Brandon Graham. Quincy Rhodes, as a junior, had 8 sacks. He has good size, could move inside on obvious passing downs, or, be an edge rusher who could spell both of the starters. So even though they don't really have a lot of giant needs right now, they draft for depth here. You can never have too many pass rushers. The Broncos may be the deepest team in the NFL. It's hard to find an obvious draft need for them, so I just went with the best player available. KJ Bolden could easily go higher than this. He was a very high recruit who has had a good career so far at Georgia. Maybe a bit undersized. He's listed at 6 foot, 185 pounds, but a good tackler, can cover, and teams like to have 3 safeties on the field. They like to run safeties as nickelbacks a lot of times, and Bolden can definitely play that role behind their starters or as a cornerback or whatever. The Broncos are good at getting the best out of their defensive players, and Bolden could fill a variety of roles for that defense. The Texans drafted Kalen Rutledge in the first round in 2026, and he's going to be their starting center from day one. They need to continue to add to that position. They have a Super Bowl caliber defense, but the offense is not quite there yet, and the offensive line is a major reason why. Indiana may not have Fernando Mendoza anymore, but the cupboard's hardly bare for the Hoosiers. They have a pair of first-round wide receivers, and Carter Smith may be the best senior offensive lineman in the country. 6'5", 308 pounds. He's been a Hoosier since they were very bad and has developed into a very good athletic left tackle who should be able to come in and start right away at either side for Houston. The 49ers signed Mike Evans and, as Stephen A. Smith called him last year, that freaking goober, Charlie Kirk, a.k.a. Christian Kirk, to be 2 of their 3 starting receivers, but they probably don't have more than a year or 2 left. I don't think they're going to be around in San Francisco long term, so they're going to need an eventual running mate for Ricky Pearsall. I'm a big Nick Marsh fan. I've had him in my first round since pretty much day one. Michigan State was not a very good football team, but Marsh did the best he could with the quarterbacks and the position he was in. He has transferred to Indiana, which is a giant move up. He will form one of the best receiver duos in the country with Charlie Becker. Both of those guys are actually juniors. I have Becker remaining at Indiana through his senior season right now, but Marsh could declare. 6'3", 203 pounds. Definitely has the look of a wide receiver 1. Still a bit raw, but playing for a bad program like Michigan State kind of may have stunted his development a little bit, but I really like him, and he could easily find himself in the conversation with a Cam Coleman or a Ryan Coleman Williams as the second receiver off the board behind Jeremiah Smith. The Bears have a lot of good young talent on the offense, but running back may be the one position that keeps that unit from being truly elite. DeAndre Swift has been mostly inefficient during his Bears tenure, and Ahmad Hardy would be a huge young upgrade. He started his career at Louisiana Monroe, where he rushed for 1,300 yards as a freshman, transferred to Missouri, so going from the Sun Belt to the SEC, that's a huge move up, but still, he rushed for 1,600 yards as a sophomore, so the stage was definitely not too big for him. Definite first-round prospect, but of course he was involved in that shooting incident a month ago. I haven't been able to really read much about his status for the 2026 season, so for right now, I'm going to go with the assumption that he will be okay and keep him in my first-round mix, but that could change if more information comes out, which really sucks. Very unfortunate. This guy is a really talented player and could be one of a handful of first and second round running backs with Lacey from Ole Miss, Nate Frazier from Georgia, and a couple other guys. So if you play in fantasy football dynasty leagues, you're definitely looking at this 2026 class to replenish your roster. I guess my predictions are a big believer that the Chiefs are going to bounce back in a big way and get back to being the Kansas City Chiefs because they're picking at the end of the first round here. They haven't really hit on receivers, even though they've tried with first and second round selections. Travis Kelce's basically year to year at this point. Trey'Dez Green is what you would create if you wanted to make a big wide receiver or an athletic mismatch tight end in a lab. 6'7", 240 pounds. Still raw, but even so, 33 catches last year, 433 yards, 7 touchdowns. He can be a matchup nightmare. You can line him up outside or send him down the middle, and that size, that quickness, he could be one of the best tight ends in the NFL. It may take a little while to get there, usually does with tight ends, but he could be a receiver, tight end, not really a blocker, but who cares? You're drafting him in the first round because you want to throw him the football. Baltimore is always up against it salary cap wise, and it's often hard for them to re-sign their own free agents. Travis Jones, Broderick Washington, Calais Campbell are all scheduled to be free agents after next year, and with Madubuike struggling to stay healthy, their defensive line could be a major work in progress going forward. Fortunately, this is a really deep defensive tackle class. Will Eccles, my fourth defensive tackle to be drafted in the first round, could actually end up being the first one if he can replicate what he did as a sophomore in 2025. 68 total tackles, 5 sacks, 6'3", 310 pounds. I mean, that's everything you look for in a defensive tackle. Versatile. Ole Miss, even without Lane Kiffin, should continue to be one of the best defenses in college football, and this guy is a definite first round prospect in my eyes. Do I think Dallas is going to be the third or fourth best team in the NFL next year? No, but that's the way my pointless predictions went, so here they are. Whatever, who cares? Their pick is going to go to the Jets, who are going to have 3 first-round picks in the 2027 draft. I gave them offensive players with their first 2 picks, so I went with the best available defender here. That could be Kelly Jones, the rare Mississippi State Bulldog underclassman who could be a first-round pick. He may not be the best athlete in the world, but 6'4", 195 pounds, very productive, picked off 2 passes as a sophomore. Like I said before, cornerbacks are often volatile. They can rise, they can fall. Who really knows a year from now? But I'm going to go to war with this guy. I really like his size, and I like his ability. In 2025, Dylan Thieneman, a lifelong Indiana guy, grew up in the state, went to Purdue, not a very good team, transferred to Oregon for his last college season, and ended up as a first-round pick as a safety. His replacement will be Coy Parrish, lifelong Minnesota guy, went to Minnesota and is going to transfer to Oregon for his junior season. An equally productive safety. He had 82 tackles as a sophomore. Definite first-round possibility for Parrish As far as Buffalo, they have Cole Bishop, who I think is a good long-term option, but could use an upgrade opposite him. So Parrish, right now, probably more of a day 2 pick, but with Oregon's track record of developing players and with how Thieneman ended up in the first round, I think this guy could follow a similar trajectory. Rounding out the first round, Cleveland has this pick from the Rams. Los Angeles trades pretty much every first round pick they ever have. This one and much more, of course, coming Cleveland's way courtesy of that Myles Garrett blockbuster trade that happened after I stopped updating my offseason rosters for Madden 26. So Cleveland added 4 new offensive line starters, but other than Spencer Fano, the other guys are probably not going to be a part of the next good Cleveland Browns team, if that team ever comes. Anthony Knapp plays left tackle for Notre Dame right now, but he measures in at 6'4", 296 pounds. And guys that size usually don't play tackle at the NFL level, so I have him as guard in my upcoming draft class. Could probably play either position, but guard or maybe even center looks like his long-term home in the NFL. And that's all I got for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I don't do mock drafts on my YouTube channel all that often because they're pretty time-consuming and I can only talk about players for so much, but this gives you an idea of the guys that will be in my 2027 draft class, at least the inaugural version. If you like this kind of thing, please subscribe. I'm trying to get to 20,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I know that's a lofty goal. That's almost twice what I have now, but hey, crazier things have happened. And stay tuned for lots more Madden content coming up. The game's coming out soon, and I'm going to be diving headfirst into these draft classes. So thank you as always, everybody, and until next time.